the fascination that you have with expectations in the same way that I do, and why I'm so keen to have this conversation, is with the difference in life expectancy and pain tolerance in quality of life that comes from religious people versus non-religious people because of that faith. So I say the irony because I barely utilised my degree since I left university, and there I go, using it amidst this conversation. But it's a very, very interesting world. So how did you begin exploring it, and what were your initial discoveries?
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating, like you said, that, you look at religious people and they do live longer. And that could be partly down to, the conscientiousness, like religions do tend to encourage exaggerated kind of behavior like drinking or drug taking or, eating to excess even. So, but yeah, it does seem that the element of faith can in itself explain some of the variance that you have in life expectancy. So all of this does show that, the effects of our expectations and beliefs can be profound. From my perspective, I really did start going into the scientific literature on the placebo effect to understand the mechanisms behind the power of expectations. And what we can see there is that even though, subjectively you might feel better just believing that you're having a medical treatment, even if it's this kind of inert sugar pill, what we can see is that you also do experience some objective changes to physiology that can't be discounted. And this has been best studied in explorations of analgesics, so painkillers. And what we find is that the brain, when we believe we're taking a painkiller, it often starts to produce its own opioid chemicals. So we call them endogenous opioids. And endogenous means that they're created by the body. And that provides this pain relief that we wouldn't experience without the release of those opioids. And we know that because you can give people a placebo and surreptitiously also give them a chemical that blocks opioid signaling in the brain. And what you find is that those people, despite believing, despite having all the same conditions as those in the standard placebo condition, they don't experience the pain relief anymore. So it's not just kind of wishful thinking. They're not just reporting what they think the doctors want to hear. We can actually see there's a physiological mechanism there, this kind of bridge between the beliefs and the effects on their symptoms. And we see that then with lots of other placebo effects. So we know that our beliefs about a medical treatment can do things like change levels of inflammation within the body, and inflammation is often the cause of our discomfort with lots of illnesses. Can change things like blood pressure, the actions of your digestive system, the actions of your cardiovascular system, your nervous system. So, all of this is happening through this interface between the mind and the body.
And if the science wasn't there to support it, it would be easy to be cynical about these things, wouldn't it? I think that's what's most incredible.
That's it. I mean, I wouldn't have written this book if there wasn't science behind it, because, I'm all about having a really good, solid evidence base. And that's what this science is doing. And it's powerful because we have lots of different strands of evidence. So you have, on the one hand, kind of observational studies that might be looking at those correlations between long life and belief in religious people. But then you also have these experiments in the laboratory that are very carefully controlled. And you also have these experiments looking at these specific mechanisms behind the effects that we see. And when they're all pointing in the same direction, then that becomes much more convincing.
It really is. And I think that the placebo effect being as well reinforced as it is validates a lot of things that'd be quite easy to dismiss as woo-woo or unreinforced. And I can imagine that's where you learnt an awful lot along the way by analysing the research. Was there any cynicism that you had in yourself going on this journey, or had you seen the evidence beforehand to decide, no, this is something I fully believe in, and hence the book?
Yeah, I mean, I started collecting a lot of the evidence, in this big kind of folder where I'd kind of, any time I noticed a paper that was interesting, I would note down the reference, and, it became a document of like about 500 papers. So I knew there was a lot of research that was being published in good journals that was supporting the idea that the expectation effect exists, that it can have this power. But I approached each one with a certain skepticism, because that's really important. And so I didn't include every study that I came across that seemed to support my argument, because some of them, when I analysed the data myself and I looked at, how they were drawing their conclusions. I just didn't feel that they were strong enough to be included. So I did have like lots of different criteria. They had to be statistically significant results with large sample sizes in general. Ideally, they would be replicated in different populations. I was really very careful to only include the results that I felt were most robust and stood up to the highest level of scrutiny.